The total Blood Moon Lunar Eclipse in Virgo on March 14th of 2025 is a turning point, a culmination of karmic cycles that have been playing out for many lifetimes. This is a moment of hard-earned clarity, where lessons of the past resurface, demanding discernment, surrender, and change. Opposing Saturn, which is in the middle of its death and rebirth into a new synodic cycle, this eclipse brings serious karmic reckonings, exposing repeating patterns, past life connections, and long-standing boundaries that are either dissolving or in desperate need of reinforcement. But with a trine to Uranus, breakthrough energy is in the air. Unique solutions to old problems are suddenly within reach, and intuitive insights are grounded in practical, tangible action. This isn't just about letting go, it's about refining what stays. The structures that no longer serve you are about to crumble, but in their place, you'll have the opportunity to build something stronger, more aligned, and more sustainable. If you've been feeling confused, lost, or stuck in a cycle that just won't seem to break, this eclipse is a catalyst for lasting positive change, but only if you're willing to put in the actual work. In this video, we'll dive in and explore exactly how this powerful eclipse will reshape your path ahead, including a forecast for all 12 signs. But before we get into it, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you never miss an important astrology update. I typically post a new video every single Saturday at 9 a.m. Mountain Time, but I've been a little off kilter with my upload schedule lately, so you might get a random video at any time during this eclipse season. Just rolling with the chaos, right? And make sure you comment below and let me know how this eclipse season has been impacting you so far, because we are already in it. And if you haven't already done so, download my Astrology 101 quick reference guide 100% free, so you can go even deeper into understanding your birth chart and understand how this eclipse is going to be impacting you in a much more detailed way. The link is down in the description below. And just as a reminder, Venus is still retrograde during this eclipse season, making this the perfect time to reflect on your relationships, reassess your values, and uncover deeper patterns playing out in all of your connections. This isn't just about love, it's about every relationship in your life and how they shape your growth. If you're ready to decode those hidden dynamics, understand your loved ones on a whole new level, and finally master the art of Synastry, don't miss out on my brand new Relationships in Synastry mini course. This course gives you a clear, structured roadmap to relationship astrology, so you can stop guessing and start reading charts with confidence. Whether you're looking to just gain insight into your own relationships or help others navigate their relationships, you'll learn how to analyze romantic partnerships, friendships, family bonds, work relationships, and so much more with precision and depth. Enrollment is open right now, and for a limited time, you can save 50% for early bird enrollment when you join us before March 19th, which is when the first batch of lessons for this mini course will be released. Click the link in the description below to learn more and join us, and I will see you inside. All right, so let's get into the general overview of the energy for this eclipse and all of the activations of this eclipse, which are going to be so important, especially this time around, because the eclipse activations are almost bigger astrology than the eclipse itself. And so we're going to talk about what that actually means. So essentially, the eclipse is happening on March 14th. It's at 23 degrees in the sign of Virgo/Pisces, because this is a total blood moon lunar eclipse, which means it's occurring at the time of a full moon in Virgo. A full moon is always when the moon is opposing the sun in astrology, and an eclipse is always when the sun and moon are in conjunctions with the north and or south nodes. And so in this circumstance, the moon is conjunct the south node. So this is a south node eclipse in Virgo. South node eclipses denote letting go, endings, culminations, moving on from past cycles. It also denotes bringing in talents, gifts, opportunities from the past and from past lifetimes into the present moment, so that way you can reintegrate it in some way, because it's part of your path in this lifetime. The opposite end of this eclipse energy is the sun in the sign of Pisces. The sun is at 23 degrees. It's in a conjunction with the north node. And so that's going to be a big energy, especially when it comes to these eclipse activations and triggers that we'll be experiencing throughout the month of March and April. The entire 2-month period is going to be so eclipsy, and I'm going to explain why in just a second here. But the other thing that's going on here, so not only is this the first big eclipse where everything is in Pisces and Virgo. We had an eclipse at the end of 2024 where the nodes hadn't shifted signs yet, but we still had that Virgo Pisces axis like activated for the first time. It was like a taste of what's to come. This is where we're full on in it. The changes are happening. The karmic transitions are underway. We are letting go and releasing of an old way of being, and our entire lives can be turned upside down by this eclipse energy, especially if you are somebody who has a lot of energy like your sun, moon, and rising in the mutable signs. The mutable signs are Virgo, Pisces, Gemini, and Sagittarius. And so if you have strong energy in those signs and you downloaded the Astrology 101 quick reference guide and you looked at your planets, this could be a major life-changing experience for you during this eclipse season. And everybody's going to get a little bit of this in one way or another. Even if it's not impacting you directly, the chart is going to show where this will be affecting you through, like, living vicariously through other people, because other people will be going through it, and that will in some way impact you. Or you'll have more subtle shifts and changes that are aligning you in a new path and a new direction that will take hold and manifest into something much bigger later on in the year, maybe when you have bigger activations with this eclipse or with the lunar nodes in Pisces and Virgo. And so everybody's going through it. Everybody has this energy in their chart. It's just, to what extent is this impacting you? Like, how powerful is it for you personally? And of course, we'll get into that when we get into the forecast for all 12 signs, but I just wanted to make note of that before we dive in. The other thing that's happening with this eclipse that's super, there's so many things actually. There are a lot of major activations that we're going to go through in just a second, but this eclipse is so bizarre. And this next 2 months, this next month and a half, I should say, is wild astrologically. Like, I have never seen anything like this in my entire time as being an astrologer, where we're having like this activation of the eclipse and then these retrogrades that are stationing over and over and over again on these eclipse points and activating them. And the other thing that's going on that's really interesting with this particular eclipse in Virgo is that on the opposite end in Pisces, we are having Saturn, it's combust at the time of the eclipse. And so when Saturn's combust, that's not necessarily the best energy for Saturn or the sun. Like, the sun doesn't like to be near Saturn. Saturn is a planet of limitation, restriction. It's very tangible. It's very dark and cold and dry. And it's just like this opposing energy almost to the sun, because the sun brings the light, right? And Saturn brings the darkness. And the sun is very warm and Saturn is very cool. And so they are a conflicting energy and they don't really get along very well. Like, they're at odds with one another. And so we have Saturn with the sun here. But Saturn is actually going to be in exact conjunction with the sun on the 12th of March. So just 2 days prior to this total lunar blood moon eclipse. This is huge. The eclipse is a karmic energy, Saturn is a karmic energy, and this is the death and rebirth of Saturn as it enters into a new synodic cycle, which is what happens every time we have Saturn conjunct the sun. And this is a period where Saturn will be reborn as the morning star in just a few weeks here. I think later on in March is when it should start to become visible. And so we're going through this reset with Saturn in our lives, in our charts. And this is really right now with that Saturn cazimi especially, where something intangible is really trying to be made tangible. Saturn is the last of the visible planets in our solar system. It creates the boundary between the material, visible, tangible world and the immaterial, invisible, like interdimensional realities that are really signified by the outer invisible planets. It's our inner and outer world. It's our tangible versus intangible reality. It's what makes sense on paper and what only makes sense in terms of feeling and sensation. And so Saturn creates that boundary. And in Pisces, this is especially the case because Pisces is so creative, intuitive, compassionate, interdimensional, interconnected. And so Saturn's really trying to bring something through here, but it's not going to be easy. Saturn is a malefic planet. This is going to take a lot of work, a lot of effort. However, there are some other energies in the mix that are helping things out. So we have a couple of different things going on here. Uranus is actually going to be trine the moon at the time of this eclipse. And so that is a positive energy for change that comes about through small adjustments and pivots that can be really exciting and really happy. And then Mars, even though it's still at its fall position in Cancer, it's still in the shadow of that retrograde that we just ended. It is in a trine with Saturn and the sun, and it's also in a sextile with the moon. And so this does give a little bit of energy toward taking action, initiating something specifically, and making changes around something specifically that have tangible long-term results. It's, again, taking our dreams and figuring out what's real and what's not real. What can happen versus what is just an illusion, a fantasy, like what is just us being delusional because we want like all the things. What can actually happen? And Virgo is very discerning. So this full moon is like, you have to let go of something that is not practical, that is not real. You need to figure out like exactly the steps, the action plan, the things that are like more not practical, I already said that, but like more objectively real in our reality. And so with all of this earth energy, with Uranus and Taurus, with the full moon being in Virgo, and with that really earthy, grounded Saturn energy, this is really about looking at what's real, what's not real. Illusion versus delusion. That's a big theme of this eclipse energy. I would say that that's going to be probably the biggest. It's like figuring out, there's like a lot going on here. What's real? This is also a very karmic energy because the eclipses are always an energy of moving into something that's aligned with our path, our destiny, what our soul wants to develop into and create. It's always a fated or destined transition or change that we don't necessarily have control over. And South Node eclipses, which is what this is, tend to be where we don't really know what the heck is going on and we are not in control. We don't feel like we're in control. Like things are just happening and we're having to experience them and we're being led and guided by the events that are unfolding in our lives. It's not guided by something internal. It's guided by something external. Usually it's like, this is just what's happening and we are like the dragon's tail without the head. We have no way of rationalizing what's going on. We just know we have to roll with it. That's going to be a big part of this lunar node, like South Node eclipse energy as well. So this is an interesting one. There are going to be some big shakeups. Blood moons are always very strong. In my Karmic Power of Eclipse webinar, which by the way, right now is on sale for 50% off through the eclipse season. This is a good one. It covers all sorts of things, including eclipse activations, which we're about to get into. It covers pre and postnatal eclipses, which everybody has and are very sensitive karmic areas in the chart. It covers eclipses by transit, like what we're experiencing right now, eclipses in the birth chart, all of it. But in that webinar, in that workshop, one of the things I talk about at the very beginning is these different categories of eclipses in which are going to be the strongest and which are going to impact people the most. And the total solar eclipse is always considered to be the most impactful, but the blood moon total lunar eclipses are just as impactful in a lot of ways. Like I've seen them absolutely turn lives upside down. Like don't discount the lunar eclipse just because people say the solar eclipses are stronger. The lunar eclipse is massive and this lunar eclipse is one of the big ones. Like there's so much energy piled up in Pisces and this is like pulling us out of it so we can see things much more clearly and get that discernment we need, which will also be helped, I think, by the Saturn cazimi, the Saturn conjunction to the sun. It's not the nicest energy. It can feel heavy, like we're dealing with a lot of weight of restriction and responsibility on the other end, but it's helping us to see what we need to do, what the action steps are. The other thing that we really need to talk about here is that we have Mercury stationing to go retrograde on the very next day. So this is happening on March 15th at 9 degrees in Aries. This is the exact degree of the Aries eclipse that's happening on March 29th. This is a pre-eclipse activation at its like height of intensity. Like this is huge. So we have two eclipse energies happening at the same time. We have an actual eclipse happening and then a massive eclipse activation happening with Mercury stationing. This is a pre-activation of the eclipse at the end of the month. This is the most karmic, like bizarre time period that we're going to experience this month from the 12th when we have that Saturn conjunction to the sun through like the 15th or 16th while Mars is stationing. Super crazy. energy, a lot of catalyzing energy for big change, but also there's like a stagnancy here. Like Mercury's alerting us that there's something that we need to pay attention to and rethink and maybe kind of go back on. And what's also interesting about this is that it's revisiting themes from March 1st on or around March 1st, which is when Venus was stationing to go retrograde, also at 9 degrees in Aries, at the same point as the eclipse on the 29th. Like, how crazy is that? How often does that happen? Never. We have 2 planets stationing retrograde at the eclipse point. Those are eclipse activations, massive eclipse activations. So think about what was happening end of February, start of March for you. We'll get into the Aries eclipse later, obviously, in the next video for this, but that's going to be an energy that's activated over this weekend around the time of this eclipse. So there's 2 areas of the chart being activated. The other thing that's bizarre about all of this is that when Mercury and Venus station to go direct in April, they're going to station to go direct in a very close proximity to the eclipse point for this eclipse. They're going to be in Pisces, the opposition of the sun, or the opposition of the moon, where the sun, Saturn, the North Node, Neptune, which I forgot to mention, are all bundled up. So this is activating that stellium. It's activating the eclipse point by activating the opposition. And so let's see here, I have my dates pulled up. On the 7th of April, Mercury will be stationing direct at 26 degrees, which is only less than 3 degrees off from the eclipse at 23 degrees. And it's very close to where the North Node is at the point of this eclipse. So the 2 sensitive degrees from this eclipse that will be very sensitive, and there'll be activation points for days, weeks, and months to come, are going to be that 23, 24 degree point, because it's at 23 degrees, 56 minutes. And then that 27-ish degree point where the true node is. Like the mean node's going to be doing something too, but we're just going to look at one to keep it simple. And so 27 degrees, 23 to 24 degrees, very sensitive points. Everything in between that is going to be extra sensitive during this time. And that's when you can see manifestations of things that come up at this eclipse, but don't actually fully manifest and make sense. And there's going to be a lot of stagnancy around this eclipse where things start to go forward and things start to change. And this is a catalyst, but you really start to see everything carry forward after those 2 stations in April, so after mid-April. So events that transpire near the eclipse on the 14th will not be resolved and will not be able to fully carry forward their manifestation, their significations, until after mid-April. That is very important because mid-April onward is going to feel eclipsy, but in a better way, where it's like, oh, I finally know where this is going. It's starting to do something. The second, obviously, activation is going to be Venus stationing direct on April 12th at 24 degrees, even closer to the eclipse in the sign of Pisces. So we have these 2 massive activation points. And so that's the biggest thing with these eclipses. It's not just now, it's like the biggest events of March and April are also tied to the eclipses. Like the biggest astrological events that are non-eclipse events are actually eclipse events. And this is rare. And even that Saturn cazimi, that Saturn conjunction to the sun, even that is an eclipse activation, a pre-activation on the 12th. They're all eclipse events. So this is one of the most karmic, most bizarre, most fated months I've seen in a few years, really, but especially in 2025. This is where everything changes. This is where there's a before and an after. This is how things were before March of 2025. You'll reminisce on that. And then after, it all went this way and it was completely different. And so that is the biggest thing that we need to kind of talk about here. And speaking of eclipse activations, once again, if you want to fully understand how eclipses trigger major life events, reveal karmic turning points, and shape your destiny, now is the time, because for a limited time only until the end of this month, you can get 50% off my Karmic Power of Eclipses training as a special eclipse season offer. This 90-minute deep dive is where you're going to learn how to predict and interpret eclipses with confidence. You'll uncover karmic lessons of the lunar nodes. You'll decode eclipse activation points. You'll know exactly when these fated events will manifest in your life as a result of the eclipses, not just in this season, but in all future eclipse seasons. This is suitable for beginner to intermediate astrologers, and you'll get a discount again until 11:59 p.m. on March 30th, so do not wait. Click the link in the description below to grab lifetime instant access for just $29 before the price goes back up and doubles at the end of this month. And so that is my spiel on that. And let's get into the forecast for all 12 signs, beginning, of course, with Aries and Aries rising. So for Aries and for Aries rising, this full moon, total blood moon eclipse in the sign of Virgo is happening in your 6th house, which is the house of health, work, and daily routines. This is a time where you're going to be transforming in that area, where new opportunities can come for you to shift things or change things when it comes to your health. But there could also be very karmic, fated, destined energies that come around health, healthcare, or your own health in general. This is also the house of work, and I would say that for a lot of you, your work is going to be changing. This is going to be a very busy time for you in the month of March, where new opportunities could come up, but especially, I would say, old opportunities could come back around for you that have karmic, destined, fated implications, where it feels like this is extra important for some reason. Like you actually have to take hold of this project. You have to actually do this thing. This is also a very service-oriented energy, because not only is it in Virgo, but it's in the 6th house, which is the house of service and servitude. This is also a house where you can find yourself doing too much for other people, having to take on the caregiver role in a lot of ways, and that could be part of what comes up here. But I would say that for most of you, there's something going on here where there's an old opportunity or an opportunity that's new to utilize an old talent, or there's an opportunity tied to a past life connection or experience, especially involving your work if you are somebody who's working. And this opportunity could lead to changes in your financial situation that could be very positive. It could also be that making positive changes to your budget and to your finances could lead to greater opportunities for like new projects, freedom, different things that you could create, manifest, move into in the realm of your work, but also your health, right? Like there could be something that you want to do to overcome an old illness or an old issue, or like maybe some pain in the body or something like that, where all of a sudden you realize like you can do this in a different way. You just have to, channel the resources into it. And so that could be a big part of this as well. This energy is very interesting. This 12th, 6th house energy, like I would say for a lot of you, there could be a connection or something going on involving hospitals, involving rehabilitation centers, involving illness, not necessarily your illness, but somebody that you know or somebody close to you. There could just be like an energy around illness that's coming up, like in your field, where people around you are falling sick, and maybe you have the answers. Like that could be a big part of this too. Like you're calling on past experience, you're calling on your innate talents and gifts to help guide people, to help serve them, to help care for them in their time of need. So even if you are not having an illness, or somebody really close to you isn't having an illness, there's something going on here. There's also this really intense desire to do something that is of service and is charitable and helpful and compassionate for other people that can be coming up around this time. There could have been a period of isolation, or you might even still be in a period where you feel a little bit more isolated, but this will bring you out of it. Like the way to find connection around the time of this eclipse is to do something helpful, useful, be of service, do something practical for other people. But overall, I would say that this energy is a big dramatic shift in your health, in your work, in your day-to-day life and routines. And also on this 12th, 6th house axis, there could be a shift in your priorities, where maybe you were prioritizing your spiritual well-being, rest, creativity, solitude, those types of things. And now you have to come back out into the world and you're forced to kind of do things. And that could be a big part of this too. For Taurus and for Taurus rising, this energy is happening in your 5th house with the full moon, total blood moon lunar eclipse in the sign of Virgo on March 14th. This is a huge, massive energy around finding your joy. Like this is bringing something back into your life that used to bring so much passion, so much joy, so much happiness that maybe you've let go of, or it's fallen by the wayside because maybe it wasn't practical. Maybe now is the time to stop listening to the naysayers and to just do that thing because you love to do it. Incorporating this back into your life is going to change the way that you view yourself. It's going to change the way that you show up in the world. It's going to change a big part of your identity. It's going to feel very freeing and very liberating for you. There's something going on here where you need to bring back in the joy. You need to bring back in like the fun, the romance even. There could be an energy here also where there are just very fated, karmic, bizarre, like heavy circumstances going on around your friends, your social networks, groups of people that you surround yourself with by choice. And the way to get out of that, the way to kind of pull yourself out and navigate it is going to be through your hobbies, your interests, through connecting with your children. This is also a time where there could be like fated karmic circumstances that show up around children. So if you have children, there could be big changes going on in their lives. There could be a need to let go of something. I could see a lot of like parents who have older children where they're having to maybe like let go of certain aspects of their relationship because it's reached this culmination and they're like graduating from high school or going off to college, or even if they're adults, maybe they're moving far away, or there's something going on here where it's like that change is it's sad or it's like difficult, but it's like liberating in a lot of ways because you get to finally focus on you and you get to just be yourself and just go wild, right? So that could be a big part of this too. For certain specific Taurus rising people, I know that that's oddly specific and it's not going to apply to everyone. And then for Gemini and Gemini rising, this total blood moon lunar eclipse in the sign of Virgo, which is happening on March 14th, but is activated and reactivated, just like I mentioned at the start of this video, don't skip those, all the way through to like the middle, even the end of April. This is a huge energy for letting go of something and moving on from something. There's a culmination that you're reaching when it comes to your home, your place of living, your property, your family dynamics, or a family situation that is preventing you from really putting in the work and doing what you need to do out in the world when it comes to your career, your public reputation, the legacy you leave behind beyond your working years. If you are somebody who's retired or not working, this is about the mark that you make on the world at large and what is going on behind the scenes that you need to liberate yourself from in order to allow yourself the ability to build and make something concrete out in the world that you've been trying to actually create for a long time. But it's kind of like creating something where you're having to give form to the formless, and it can be very difficult. You feel very intensely pulled and drawn toward it, but it's like every little step is challenging, heavy. It feels like a little dark or scary even. And part of what needs to happen here is there needs to be a shift between that balance between your family life and your home life and this work that you're really here to do, this karmic work that's like part of your fate right now, part of your destiny right now. There could also be very fated, very unusual circumstances going on involving your home or your property. You could be moving, you could be losing a home, you could be gaining a new home, you could be going back to a place that you once visited or once lived in, or there could be like a past life connection to a place of living that you are like re-engaging with in some way. But very often people who have eclipses in their 10th and 4th house like this, they go through career changes and also moves, and often those two are tied together. I could totally see that being the case for you. And there is something here where if you deal with the home life situation, which you're going to be forced to, like things are just happening behind the scenes and you're not fully going to understand it. You're just going to have to roll with it. But it's going to allow you to be more discerning with what you're doing and putting out there and manifesting and making tangible with your work. And that's also going to ignite a fire around some additional resources. I would say short-term gains with this, but like a little burst of energy around money. And then for Cancer and for Cancer rising, this full moon, total blood moon, lunar eclipse in the sign of Virgo on March 14th, that's super active all of March and pretty much all of April. This is going to be happening in your 3rd house, which is the house of siblings and extended family members. And so there could be a fated, very karmic circumstance that comes up around if you have siblings, where there could be a need to let go of something, there could be a need to move on from something, there could be a need to reintegrate that relationship, or your sibling or extended family member could be going through some massive changes, and that pulls you out of focusing on other things. This is also an energy that's really wonderful for reconnecting with people that feel like family. It could be reconnecting with a childhood friend that felt like a sibling or felt like a sister or brother that you were really close with. That's a big signification with that third house energy and with that south node. This is also massive changes going on in terms of your friends, your social networks, people that you surround yourself with by choice. And there could be fated new connections that come in through your immediate environment, your community, that become really important connections. They're like fated, they're destined. Like you are destined to connect with these people. We're your neighbors, we're your community. Certain people that you're running into or meeting at this time, they feel familiar, like oddly familiar, like you already know them, like you've already connected with them, even though you're just meeting them today. There's a sense that there are like sign synchronicities, something bizarre going on here that's leading you in that direction. There could also be fated circumstances coming involving travel, short distance travel in vehicles especially, but really travel in general because of that ninth house connection where there's a karmic implication or a past life connection to a certain location and you're being very drawn to go there and travel there over the next month and a half even. Maybe later this year, it could be something that you are like, it's all of a sudden on your radar now, you're pinged on it. And then in the fall, when we have our next eclipse season, you're actually going to that location. And so that's what's going on for Cancer. For Leo and for Leo rising, this total blood moon lunar eclipse in the sign of Virgo, that's super active all of March, all of April, exact on the 14th of March. This is happening in your second house, which is the house of money and finances. There are some massive changes that you need to make when it comes to the way that you deal with your money. And these are just kind of being forced upon you due to circumstances that are beyond your control. This is going to cause you to really shift and change and pivot the way that you're doing business, the way that you're dealing with your career, your public reputation. You want to do something that's much more exciting, much more liberating, but there's like a shaky structure going on right now where everything is in flux and you're constantly jumping from one thing to the next thing and everything is just changing so dramatically. But there is a need to make those changes when it comes to what it is that you're putting out there into the world in order to facilitate what it is that you want for yourself when it comes to your finances, when it comes to your money. There is an energy here where money can come through investments, through an outside source, through financial guidance, even through like a financial advisor. However, there's like a heaviness or a weird nefarious energy around it where it feels kind of scary or dark or difficult in some way. That Virgo energy in the second house, it's going to help you to kind of pull yourself out of that and to see things much more clearly and to be much more discerning about your budget and how you're dealing with your resources. But definitely this is a time where everything could be flipped upside down with your money and with your resources. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's causing you, like it's like there's a restriction going on, but that restriction is very fated and it's leading you in a different direction with your finances, and it's forcing you almost to change something with the work that you're putting out there into the world in order to not mitigate it, but in order to set things right so you have a much better foundation financially for your investments, for your savings, for your life into the future. And then for Virgo and for Virgo rising, massive changes in your entire life, Virgo, because this is happening in your sign. Massive changes for your relationships, massive changes for you personally. You're moving in a brand new direction. And this impacts your entire life. There's been a lot of energy the past couple of months since January, and really since like the beginning of last year, centered around relationships. A lot of heaviness, a lot of extra responsibility, a lot of challenge that's been thrust upon you when it comes to the responsibility that you carry for others. There's a lot of karma, a lot of karmic debt that you are paying and that you are moving forward through and into when it comes to your relationships. There's a sense that there is something bigger than you guiding whatever it is that's going on there, and you don't necessarily have control over it, even though you do seem like you have a choice. It's kind of like, I feel like I am making choices, but also I feel like I have to do this with this person or in this partnership or with this partnership. Some of you might be ending partnerships. Some of you might have come into brand new relationships that are very, very destined, that are very fated, that are very tied in with your karma, with your path in this lifetime, but it's not easy at the beginning, and it's going to take a lot of work over the next like 30 years if you stay with this person forever, right? So like this is a time of having to put in the work and to pay your dues and to repay karmic debts in relationship. Right now with this full moon, there's been so much focus where you have to focus on that relationship. Now it's more about you. What do you want? What do you need? What do you want to create moving forward? What is your path? How is your path shifting as a result of these relationship connections? This is also about you aligning your path with your integrity, because you've been going through a lot of changes when it comes to your beliefs, your philosophical frameworks, your religious value systems that frame your reality. Now it's about walking the talk. Walking the talk, talking the talk, walking the walk, aligning yourself with all of that. But this is a time where, especially if you are sun, moon, or rising anywhere from 20 to 30 degrees, your entire life is going to be turned upside down, not just for you, but for your relationships, for your work, for your home life. But it's going to throw you into a path that's much more aligned with what you came here to accomplish. And the changes and the pivots that you need to make, some of them will be pretty grand, but some of them will be more subtle and much easier. And overall, this is an energy of liberation where you're putting in the work in all of those one-on-one connections. There's some contracts that you need to break. There's some new contracts you need to create. There's boundaries that need to be reinforced here. And that's going to serve you in so many ways personally. And so, yeah, Virgo, you're going to have an interesting time, but it's not bad. Like, a lot of this is being mitigated. So stay in there, like stick with it. It'll feel a lot lighter as we leave really middle of April. And then for Libra and for Libra rising, this total blood moon lunar eclipse in the sign of Virgo is happening in your 12th house, which is the hidden house. It's the house of secrets. There is something that could come to light here that has been kept from you, from your coworkers, from your employees. There's something that could have been hidden when it comes to health issues that's now coming to light. There's like a secret that has been behind the scenes controlling something or directing something involving your work, health, or day-to-day routines, day-to-day connections that is now becoming more apparent. This is also a big culmination where you're letting go of a lot. Like, this is a period of endings, letting go, purge. You're going to be dealing with a lot on that end. And also, this is a period around the time of this full moon where you might be thrust into more solitude, seclusion, contemplation. You've been busy, focused on like restructuring things with your work, with your health. Like, your health might have been a lot more work over this past year, and it might still be a lot more work over the next few months, especially. And the North Node is it's with Saturn in order to show you like these limitations and restrictions are here because there's something that you need to learn from this, and then you need to like embrace this new path. You need to go in this new direction. So it's going to take you to a place that you never thought of prior to this time period. But right now it's more about that contemplation, that solitude. There could be like a spiritual awakening or revolution that comes where you realize something and then it affects you when it comes to your health or your work in some way. There's a lot of people leaning on you right now too, I would say, Libra, like a lot of people leaning on you, especially if you're somebody who works as a healer or in a healing profession where your work is just like, you're on all the time right now. And this could be that pull that forces you to kind of take a break and take a step away from that in order to realign yourself with the path that you're meant to move into in this lifetime. And that's actually going to have positive financial implications moving forward as well. And then for Scorpio and for Scorpio rising, this total blood moon lunar eclipse in the sign of Virgo is happening in your 11th house, which is the house of friends, social networks, and people that you surround yourself with by choice. This is the time for fated new connections with groups of people, with new friendships that feel like you already know them. They feel old, they feel familiar because these are past life connections. This could also, especially if you're a sun, moon, or rising Scorpio, especially a rising sign Scorpio, anywhere from 20 to 30 degrees, this could be a connection that comes through your network or through your friends. That could actually be a romantic connection that comes in that's very fated, very karmic, that feels very familiar. But there's a lot of energy of connecting with people where it feels oddly synchronistic. It feels oddly important. And these people, you feel like you've known them for a lifetime when you just met them. These are significant. These are going to lead to something later. So pay very close attention to these people and these connections. There is an energy here where you've been feeling like a little bit of a weight. It's like there's something that is just so aligned with your joy, with your creativity, with your ability to just do the things that you love to do because you love to do them, but there's been like all these restrictions and all this weirdness around it. Your friends and your social networks, there's somebody in your network that's going to pull you out of it and help guide the way. There's also a really beautiful energy here, a synergy between shifting something in relationship with like a current connection, a current close relationship, a current close friendship that's going to help guide your path. So there's like a big change that needs to happen here in your relationship. There's a big change that needs to happen here when it comes to fifth house topics involving joy, romance, hobbies, interests, things that you love to do, passion pursuits, but also children. This is a time where there could be big changes going on involving children. I wouldn't be surprised if some people ended up pregnant because Saturn in the fifth house, even though that does restrict fertility, I've seen that connect with taking on the responsibility for a child. This is also the North Node there, so it could be like an unexpected thing where for some people, it could feel like a little bit like a burden. There could also be an energy here where there's a fated or limitation or restriction around having children, where you find out that there's something wrong or something that's going to be more difficult. But when you find the right practitioner to work one-on-one with, or you ask your friends for referrals and connections, like you're going to find something through the grapevine that's going to work for you. And then for Sagittarius and Sagittarius rising. For Sagittarius, this full moon, blood moon, lunar eclipse in the sign of Virgo is happening in your 10th house, which is the house of career and public reputation. For you, there's been a lot of heaviness and karmic energy and just so much going on in the fourth house where it's very nebulous, very murky. You're trying to take something formless and bring it into manifestation, which you'll have some help with the week of the eclipse for sure, Sagittarius. But there's also something that needs to manifest in the area of career and public reputation. There's a faded energy around maybe an old opportunity coming back around for you with your work, or the ability to take your old talents and gifts from earlier on and reintegrate them into the work that you're doing in the present. There could also be like very literally just a new job opportunity, but it feels fated, it feels important, and it feels very natural to you because it is tied to your talents and gifts from previous and past lifetimes. There's something here that's going to pull you out of the muck of what's going on in your fourth house, and it's going to kind of take you into that 10th house. There are also changes that need to happen in the 4th and 10th house. It could be a big move that's occurring. It could be a big career change. It could be both, but they're kind of tied in with one another. And especially with Uranus in your 6th house as a sextile and trine to this eclipse energy, like there's a big change going on here in your work, your health, your daily routines, and your biggest like overall career path, or the path that or I should say the impact that you make out in the world. And then there's also this like heaviness or challenge going on in the 4th house that you're working toward overcoming, and that this full moon, this eclipse should pull you out of it enough to get clarity. It's almost like you have to ask for expert advice, and that advice is going to come through like a means where it's just synchronistic and the right person shows up and you're able to ask for their guidance. And so that's what's going on for Sagittarius. For Capricorn and Capricorn rising, this full moon, blood moon, total lunar eclipse in the sign of Virgo that happens on the 14th and is super active all of March, all of April, is happening in your 9th house, which is the house of travel, foreign connections, your beliefs, your ideologies, higher education. There's going to be so many changes in these areas. Fated travel is going to come up for a lot of Capricorn rising people in particular, and this energy of needing to go to a place that feels really compelling, that feels really familiar to you, that feels really good to you. Maybe you've never been there before, but there is a past life connection to a certain location that you might need to travel to. There's also a fated energy around letting go of something, or a culmination around something involving higher education or a higher degree of some kind. There's also a need to maybe move on or let go of an energy around a certain belief system or religious ideology that you have a connection to from the past, in order to move forward into something that is more aligned in the future. There's also this energy here around maybe like learning a skill set. Like there's something that you want to take that you have this vision of, and it's hard to give form to it. And you're not sure if this is realistic or not, but the North Node says like you have to go for it. It's just not going to be exactly what you think it is. And if it's tied to something that you are deeply passionate about, that brings you so much joy, that feels really fun, that feels really exciting and fulfilling to you, then this is the time where you might have to go for it. There could also be fated and karmic circumstances that come up around not just travel, but like the means of travel. I would say not the worst time to book a flight, but maybe not the best time. There could be an energy here around vehicles though, where like you need to purchase a vehicle or something like fated happens involving a vehicle, and that changes things for you through like random happenstance. And so that's a big part of this too for Capricorn. And then for Aquarius and Aquarius rising, this full moon, blood moon, lunar eclipse in the sign of Virgo, active all through March and April, is happening in your 8th house, which is the house of death. It's the house of rebirth. It's the house of transformation and psychological issues. It is also the house of money and finances, especially joint money and finances. There could be something very interesting going on here. There's something going on where there's like money from the past that comes back around, or money that's being owed to you in a fated or karmic way that is a result of a change that you made involving your family dynamic or your home life, or it's going to result in a change to your home living situation or a family dynamic of some kind. Like there's something going on here where it's tying changes with the family, changes with the home to money and money that needs to come in. This is also a fated time where paying off debts might come up, and it's kind of like you don't really know how it's going to happen, but you know that it needs to happen, or maybe you don't want to pay off the debt, but it feels really important. And so instead of holding on to cash, you pay it off. There's been a lot of heaviness and weirdness and confusion around money in general for you, Aquarius, over these past few months. And this is a time where you're going to pull yourself out of it through an outside source. So it's like money comes in through an insurance payout, money comes in through your partner, money comes in through an inheritance, guidance comes in through a financial advisor or through good advice of some kind involving your money. But something's going on here where your connection to the material, your connection to finances is changing, and the way that you're dealing with your money is changing. There could be an unexpected expense that you have to pay that comes in very suddenly that shifts things or changes things. And if you are looking like for financing for a home or a property, I don't recommend the eclipses for that necessarily, but something with this could lead to it, right? I don't say take out a loan on an eclipse, but there's something here that could shift it or lead to it. This is also a time where there's a powerful period of healing, letting go of past fears, anxieties, traumas, things that are controlling you in the present moment that have nothing to do with your present experience, that are tied to especially early life experience, your parents, your ancestral lineage, that are just not serving you moving forward. And that's not just with finances, that's with everything. Like there's something going on here where you need to move on from your fears, so you can move into something that's much better for you, where that's not controlling your actions in the present, your choices in the present anymore. And then for Pisces and for Pisces rising. For Pisces, this full moon, blood moon, lunar eclipse in the sign of Virgo is happening in your 7th house of relationships. There's going to be a lot of interesting changes and energy around relationships and partnerships for Pisces right now. Everything is up for change for you in general, just because you have so much energy on your ascendant, sun, or moon, and then this eclipse is opposing it. But I would say for you in particular, especially Pisces rising people, relationships will be front and center. There are some connections that you might need to let go of at this time. That's going to feel exciting and good too, though. It's kind of like you're making space to focus on you, because you have so much weight that you're carrying right now. You have so much responsibility, and there's so much that you don't fully understand about who you are and what you're here to do and what the next steps are, that you really need to focus on you. And so right now, the focus is on relationships for this eclipse, but it's almost as if you're focusing on relationships now so you can get it out of the way and let go of something, and then go back into that space of creating form around this formless kind of glob of energy of like, who am I? What am I doing? What's my path? Where am I going next? There's also potential for new connections to come in, Pisces, where these are fated. Like these are close connections with people that feel like family, that feel familiar, even though you've never met them before. There are synchronicities around new connections coming in that just feel powerful, that just feel important, and they could come in through your immediate environment. Like literally you could go to the store and you just meet someone, and it just feels so random, but also so synchronistic. And it was just pay attention to the way you feel about new connections with people, because the ones that feel odd and like something is going on here, but you can't quite put your finger on it, they're odd for, like, it feels that way for a reason, because there's a karmic connection here. There's something that you need to do with this connection to bring it in. There's also going to be fated endings of connections too. So, I mean, we talked about that a little bit, but you're moving on from some people, and then the new connections that come in, especially those one-on-one, especially those romantic partnerships, those are going to be fated partnerships. There's also a need to shift or change something pretty dramatically. If you are somebody who's like married or in a long-term relationship, it's like your relationship is being turned upside down, and what you were focusing on as like a team, as a unit before, that's shifting in some way, and you need to go in a different direction. And that direction is going to be heavily dependent on what it is that you're trying to build. And so that's what's going on for Pisces and Pisces rising. And so that is my forecast for all 12 signs for this big lunar eclipse. Let me know in the comment section below what you're going through. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to my channel so you never miss an important astrology update, and I will see you in the next one. Bye, everyone.